Welcome to the studio. Lovely
you.
to have you here. Let's start the good old-fashioned way of introducing yourself. Perhaps Amira, if you go first.
Yes, hi. So, Amira Norris. I am the co-founder of a company called the Mentor Standard, and also a financial services consultant with about 30 years' experience in financial services.
Brilliant. Julie?
Um, I'm Julie Goddard. I'm a business psychologist. I specialise in leadership and high stakes environments. So, how pressure affects us, really.
All right, let's battle straight into that one then. What's a high-stakes environment?
My segue there. High stakes environment is one in which you're under pressure consistently, and that pressure never really lets up. So there's constant pressure, there's high visibility and accountability. And usually you're talking about an industry that's externally regulated. So your decisions carry a great weight, not in terms of the stakeholders, but also ones that are overlooked by a regulator.
So that has direct links then with financial services.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What do you see?
I think we clocked up something like 21 different new pieces of legislation that have come in for financial services in the last 14 years with it. Lots of transformation, lots of tech change, lots of accountability. We're looking after the nation's money. So you don't get more high pressured and high stakes than that, really, sometimes.
Very good. So as a behavioural psychologist, can you talk a bit about sort of how important to understand that framework and the leadership and the...
I think we don't talk enough about clarity and the role of clarity. We talk a lot about decision making, the importance of making decisions, but really how we gain clarity is really important in that process. It's when we lose sight of what matters. Sometimes that might be our values. Sometimes it might be the goals that are important for the business, the strategy track that we're taking. But often when people stall, that's what's missing, is that clarity on what's important, what can I focus on now, and avoiding, if we can, when we're under pressure, we have this need for certainty.
Mm.
So very often we can find ourselves in meetings and there'll be somebody at the back, and it's not always the loudest voice in the room, but there'll be somebody that comes up with something that may well work, sounds very plausible, and suddenly we lock that in for the answer. And the reason we lock that in for our decision outcome is because we want to move away from that uncomfortableness that we feel when we're in uncertainty. If we think about the changes that Amira's just mentioned there about within the industry, but not just that, how uncertain the world is, because we're humans, so we're not just turning up to work in a bubble.
Yeah, and the level of uncertainty's gone up quite a lot, hasn't it, in recent years?
Our life going on, family going on, we've got all of that. Operating in a world where there's so much uncertainty, I'm going to use the word unprecedented, and I was going to try not to, but honestly, the pressure that's banked up at the moment for everybody, and then you have businesses that are trying to operate in that. So there's a whole heap of uncertainty and pressure going on, and so without even realizing it, that's going to impact how we make a decision, how quickly we make decisions. And it really does distort the behaviours that we think are guiding us.
Does that resonate with what you see with your clients?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a lot in the client environment, but also with new leaders that are coming in to the workforce now who have been very good practitioners. They're entering that leadership phase for the first time. They're starting to manage people. It's that fear of making the wrong decision, making the wrong call, and how you empower and enable people to work in this uncertain environment.
And I'm going to go a little off piece, but has it changed at all post-COVID? Was this just a sort of a constant in all that uncertainty?
I think we haven't ever got over that. We just assume that that's gone. But the pressure that put on families, on businesses, on society, and we sort of came out the other end of it and thought, okay, well, a job done, off we go then. But we're still carrying the weight of that.
Yeah.
Of that isolation, all of that pressure that we had to take on roles that weren't there, everything else.
Yeah, suddenly overnight.
Juggle. Everybody suddenly had to get on board with Zoom. So
Yeah, and I think workforce expectations have changed a lot as well. So the demand of your staff and your employees on They've been used to working from home. With the cost of living crisis now, they're used to not having to waste the money on travel costs and childcare costs. So
Feels optional almost.
exactly. So I think it's had a massive impact culturally and organisationally on businesses.
And I know you're keen to talk about this, but the role of trust
Oh, huge.
within that.
Massive,
Yeah.
because I think if you're going with the flow and the pressure and you're making decisions quickly and your values are getting lost along the way, what happens is you have something that in I3 leadership we call surface steady. So you're surface steady from the outside, but something's missing underneath all of that. And as humans, we're very good at detecting that. We're very good. We might not be able to articulate why it is that we don't feel we can trust that person with certainty, but we do know something's not quite right. And when people don't trust, they hold back. And they hold back, that could be as simple as not speaking up in a meeting or not saying that they can identify a risk that's coming up. If they doubt that you have their back, if they think that you're carrying an agenda, they'll tell themselves a story. Again, we're very good at this. We do it very quickly. If we think something's off, we'll find a reason for it. And then we'll look to confirmatory bias, which will make sure that we think we're right on the reason that we're told. And very rarely are we right. But by that point, that story is then embedded. And for a leader, you need your whole team behind you, particularly in the circumstances that we've been talking about. Not only that, you don't want somebody to give half of what their potential is at work. So that level of trust and the ability as a leader to put your hand up and say, I'm not entirely sure. I'm not entirely confident. Maybe I'm 75% on this. What are you? What do we have around the room here? I think people will respond to that far greater. And I think chunking down that decision-making process so you can go, okay, if collectively we're at 70% confidence in this as a track, it's not irreversible. Let's lock that in, but let's keep really agile and revisit that and see what the outcome might be. That builds trust, I think.
I think they think about it in terms of technology
Mm.
as well, and the pace. So you got all that uncertainty and the need to move, and technology moving so fast. I was interested to see, like, thinking about that in the context of financial services and decisions and high pressure environments. What are your observations about what would the leaders do when faced with some quite big transformation, but also some really opportunities just for employees to improve their working life?
Well, that's the importance of trust, really, isn't it? So when you're coming into technology-driven organizations and you're looking for efficiencies, you're wanting to bring more technology in, you want to bring some automation. Now we're even starting to explore how we can use AI in some of those decision-making processes. Are they being introduced to augment your workforce, or are they being introduced to replace your workforce? And that bit of trust and that dissonance is really starting to resonate now. So you hear of workforces being very resentful or reticent to engage in trials and proofs of concept because they're worried about the impact it's going to have on their jobs. So it really comes back to, do you have really good communication with your staff? Are you telling them what the benefits are for them as well as for the business? Are you engaging with them so that they do have the trust in you that you're on the journey with them, and they've got a part to play in that for you as well? So yeah, it's fundamental in everything that we do these days.
And in terms of leaders and decision making, technology must put some opportunity and risk at a different level.
Yeah, and I think it all comes down onto that. There's another falseness that leads us down the wrong path in high stakes environments, and that is the false sense of urgency that we have. And I think that goes hand in hand with technology at the moment. Everybody has this collective need for speed. And the fear of, well, if we wait too late, we're going to be a late adopter and things aren't going to go our way. We're going to be behind, so we need to move really quick.
And some of that's an external environment, isn't it? In the government at the moment, it's just adoption,
Yes.
the pursuit of
Growth.
growth. This is some magic bullet.
Absolutely. And the fact is, technology is growing so fast anyway that it is a fact if we wait too long, then the technology that we were discussing in the first place might be irrelevant at that point. So it's putting pressure on that need to act more quickly. And I think what leaders can do in that circumstance is say, okay, how irreversible is this decision? I know we've mentioned this before, but is it irreversible? Or can I take the next step, lock in my next step that I am clear about, and take my team with me in that agile way and say, things are going very, very quickly. Let's keep that as an approach. That's what we know. There's a danger to be found in being confident and misreading confidence as competence. And that gets dialed up in these situations as well. So firstly, if you don't feel confident, don't wait for confidence to come, because actually confidence arrives later. And it doesn't seem logical to us that that's the case. What we need is clarity. We need to be clear on the action that we need to take. We need to remain agile. We need to know the success criteria that we want as a result of having made that decision. We want to do all of that with a framework that says to our staff and our employees, this is the way that we work. And then we need to evaluate. Only if something's irreversible do we need to take a little bit more time. And then we need to look to the experts and we need to open up the options that we have to us, really. So I think be clear about whether or not that need for speed that we feel, let's be clear about whether or not that's real or whether it's coming from a sense of panic. Is it coming from oh, look, this is splashy and sexy and shiny over there and we should all adopt that? Really? Is it going to take us in a direction we want? Is it going to put the consumer at the heart of what we do? And is it going to make a difference in alignment with our company's goals and strategy?
You know, we also hear a lot now, this done is better than perfect, in this striving to move forward. But actually, if you focus too much on that, sometimes the done aspect becomes more and more diluted. So you're looking for what's the MVP? What's the minimum that we can get away with to call this done? So you start to lose some of that power and some of that efficiency from being more agile. It's almost the reverse of agility.
Yeah, because I mean, the sort of entrepreneurial thing at the moment is you build the smallest you can, test, pivot.
But try and complete, it's that definition of what done is. And then how do you build that forward motion so that you are improving, enhancing, not doing an MVP, going off and working on the next thing and never going back to improve the MVP that you've just finished. So there's a lot in that.
And of course, all of this is happening in a regulated, compliant setting. So how can you test and make sure that that's still within what you're allowed to do? And I guess judgment. I mean, compliance is very binary, don't we? Yes, no, but there's judgment within that. So there's another complex factor.
So the beautiful thing about financial services is we are a principles-based regulator. So there's a lot of guidance, but no set instructions and boundaries. Thou shalt not, unless it comes to thou shalt not rip off a customer. Those are the binaries. But what they've really created an environment of is that you can innovate, you can test. So they've launched a couple of really cool sandboxes within the FCA at the moment where you can go and test some AI, you can go and test some of your new propositions and proposals.
Finding
going
that
out
safe
with it.
space.
Exactly. Governance. It goes back to Julie's point. As long as you've got yourself protected with the governance and the frameworks that sit around it, you can innovate as much as you want within that, but it's your guiding principles.
So I want to just lean a bit more into the mentoring now,
please.
And going back to the people at the core, at the heart of it, aren't they? The central bit and some of the behavioural bits that you're talking about there. How can it help then with some of this grey area, the decisions and?
I think you just started talking about safe space.
It's so one of the things we really notice now is you're left to your own devices quite a lot. You have to be self-motivated. You've got to be a self-starter. A lot of what companies are looking for is somebody who can just adapt and move quite quickly with the pace that things are pushing through. But with that, you're creating these vacuums where people are craving a direction and give me an opinion. How would I approach this? How would I do that? And in a managerial context, your manager is just there to try and help you get the job done. Where mentorship really comes in is it exposes you to senior leadership. It will expose you to your peers in a different way, where you can really start to ask some of those questions around, well, how would you approach this? I've got to go on stage next month and present. I've never done it before. What could you teach me and help me get that forward. So you can break it down into micro mentoring, where you're just focusing on that one thing. I've got to go on stage. How can you help me? Right the way through to a mentor who will take you through a year's program or a journey, which is what's the next step for your career? How can you approach promotions or career pivots that you're looking for? So I think in the world that we're existing in now, it's become a fundamental informal part of your career journey.
Get the right person. I actually don't talk about this enough, and one of the things that really gets under my skin, if you like, is people that will wear mentorship as a badge and happily say, I'm a mentor, I've been a mentor for years, as if that suddenly roll the red carpet out. Isn't this person wonderful? I don't know. Are you? I don't know. How do you treat your mentee? What are your values? What does being a mentor mean to you? Do you approach it? So if you're looking for a mentor to give you that, in another way of looking at it, we've spoken a lot about uncertainty at the moment. If you find the right mentor, and Amira's found spoke about micro mentoring as a way in, which is brilliant because we're all incredibly busy. But if you're very articulate about your ask and you make it a short, limited amount of time.
Yeah, because I've not heard that phrase before, actually, micro mentoring, but more.
Very rarely will people decline that, because.
But will you be my mentor? It feels like a. Oh, I don't know.
And also, it feels like asking for help, and people don't like doing that. But actually, the research shows us the exact opposite is true. That people love to help. If you think back to times when somebody has said, complimented you on your professionalism or asked for assistance, actually it's a big buzz. It makes you feel good that you can make a difference. And it's one of our 3 basic psychological needs, is that connection with other human beings. So if we're holding back from finding a mentor because we're thinking, oh gosh, how will it look if I ask? Hopefully that gives you a bit of reassurance. In fact, that your mental prospective mentor will actually get a really nice glow, feel good factor in there. And that doesn't mean you're automatically going to get a yes, but if you do get a no, just think, well, it might not be the right time right now. But that finding a mentor can give you that pocket of certainty or safeness to try out things.
Definitely.
Is there a simple question that our listeners, thinking about mentoring or in the mentoring space, that they could use straight away, that you've got an example that you give to them?
Yeah, so one of the things I always try and sit down and challenge people on is, what's holding you back right now? What's your one concern? What's the one thing that's stopping you from moving forward in whatever topic they want to be working on? Because that really kind of helps you condense down your thinking, makes it much more binary, helps you with that decision making.
That's a good one. We got a tip?
Yeah, I think I'd go, what's the cost of not doing anything?
Yeah.
Because sometimes when we're umming and ahhing about a decision or thinking how that might affect us, time's ticking, and you will pay. There will be a consequence to you not making a decision. So it might be trust. It might be your relationship with your colleagues. It could be your relationship with your line manager if things are getting stalled. So very often we think we're okay because we're in this bubble of just looking through our options. But the longer we stay there, there is actually a cost that's associated to it. And sometimes just even that question can enable us to open up and go, okay, what's my next step? Because that's going back to pulling a thread all together. That's what we need. We need clarity on that next step.
So again, lots of complex factors, and I'm going to push you again a little bit because this is in partnership with the Women in Finance Collective.
Yeah.
Is there any element which is a gender-related viewpoint or that's different? And you can say no, but...
Oh no, I think Julie's got this one.
To say yes, but it's not yes. Oh, I have got this one because this is what I'm passionate about. I'm going to say yes, there is an element, but it might not be in the way that you think it is in having asked that question. Imposter syndrome, let's just pause and mention that for one moment. I was really fascinated by this when I started up my business, and I contacted Dr. Pauline Clarence, who is the woman who published all the original research, and I said, my business is very research, fact, evidence-based. Can I use your scale in the work that I do? And straight away she said no. And not just a little no, like
a big no, very determined.
with a disclaimer of why she was saying no, which was she doesn't believe, and neither do I now, and hopefully when I finish explaining, neither will our listeners, believe in imposter syndrome. because that's never a terminology that she used. It came from the media who latched onto it. And as humans, we all like diagnosing ourselves, and we all like finding things that resonate with us because it's that connectedness again, and it makes us feel like, "Oh, I understand myself a little bit better." And women particularly have been told for possibly 4,000 years, if not longer, but certainly still today in the workplace, that they're not confident enough. And we can look at performance management reviews. We can look at, there is a shed load of research.
It's almost reinforcing.
Yeah, where line managers say, I think you need to be more confident. And it's on such a scale that it's now become a multi-billion-pound industry. You have confidence coaches, you have confidence books that you can go out and buy. You can look at Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, which was a massive book needed at the time. We really needed to hear that permission of it's okay to not feel confident at the start and to push through it. But we own that as women, and we own that in the workplace. So it's not just a case of where does the fault lie in owning this, who are we blaming? It's not about that at all. It's about saying that we need to free ourselves of this need to feel confident. I used to speak on International Women's Day as one of their official speakers. And about 3 years ago, I put into Google and I put women, leadership, confidence. I had something like over 4 million, when Google says hits 4 million. Now I changed one word. I just dropped women and put men, leadership, confidence. I had 400 results. 400. Now, being me, I dug into the details on that. So I went and opened it up and I looked, and I went into probably the first 10 when I thought, okay, but I think I can reliably say there's a pattern here. And they were all what to do if you were a male line manager and you wanted to encourage a
Females.
female that you were line managing so that they could develop confidence. Now, I don't think there's any maliciousness underneath this. I just think it's something that's developed and we've all bought into it. And we all think it is. But the truth is, we're particularly bringing it back to decision-making and confidence and leadership. Confidence is bad, actually. There's a lot of things to say that things go very wrong when we get too confident. And when we get confident, we stop processes, we take shortcuts. And the research and evidence shows us, actually, that the most confident people are actually the worst decision makers. So if we bear that in mind, if you're out there thinking, I'd apply for that leadership position or I'd go for that, I just need to feel a little bit more confident. We all have moments of doubt. We all feel that paralyzing sense of, gosh, at some point, am I here? Have I just faked it? The point is, that's self-doubt. And self-doubt can be healthy.
Yeah.
Depending on how we look at it. So we could look at it and say, actually, is it self-doubt? Or is it discernment? So I do think these things creep in, but possibly not in a way, as I said at the beginning, that we might have expected. And I'm incredibly passionate as somebody who once thought imposter syndrome was like the answer, and we just needed to understand this. And then it's not.
It's actually a marketing campaign.
Yeah, it really is.
Feels like it.
Clarity is the answer. Next step. What's next one brave thing that you can do, and then do it?
Well, thank you so much. It's been an
Thank you for
absolute
having us.
pleasure talking to you today, and hopefully we can keep the conversation going another time. Thank
Looking
you.
forward to it.
Nice to meet you. Thank you.